A church is a place where people come to and get divine fellowship and spiritual empowerment for the task in life. This means that a church must mold, build, and give shape to every individual that permits her to. Many people have gone through the Royal Generation Fellowship, both within and outside the country.
We've come a long way, I will say that. And a few thoughts I want to leave with us as I reminisce over some of the things that have happened. We used to be called the Sweet Fragrance, SFF, Sweet Fragrance Fellowship. And it was an amazing time. There was a time in Lagos, Glory Worship Center was known as the church where there's a wedding every Saturday. You heard me right. Ask around.
I joined the Royal Generation the year after. That's 2009. I'm not sure about the dates, 2009, 2010. When I started coming to church, after the service, I just disappeared. All of a sudden, this guy is always running. Was it Chumoke Johnson or something? Just talking to me that, can you be part of us? This is the Royal Generation, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, why not if not? It's about youth coming together to know more about Christ, know more about themselves and all that, and grow together.
I must say that the Royal Generation is a blessing to wonderful people. Human resources are our greatest assets in Royal Generation.
It was worth the while because it also gave me some form of training in dealing with human beings, and I also learned how to be patient.
Apart from the spirituality about it really also attracted me to Royal Generation then, and it was really awesome. I remember when we used to have the weekly Wednesdays prayer meeting. We come together after work, and it's usually amazing, sincerely. It was then.
That was a fantastic experience because then the passion we see in the youths in our church, the passion was so so interesting. And we being the drama department of the Royal Generation, we were lucky then because we had people that are passionate that just wanted to make a name, stamp their name, like put a mark that, okay, we came, we saw, we conquered.
It's been an interesting trip. When I got back from the youth service, I became more active in Royal Generation. I remember very well that I had an encounter in Glory Worship Center that has shaped my life to what it is now.
I remember on Wednesdays we had discussions every Wednesday evening. We'll come and talk about relationship, topics that centered around the youths. And many youths were coming and we were benefiting from it. The other dynamic aspect of it was the involvement of the drama unit. The Royal Generation became symbolic, and the drama unit was always on ground for ministration.
The fellowship has birthed different outstanding units such as the vestibules, which is drama department, the PED, which is the prayer and evangelism department, the RG choir, and many others. The memories of events from RG are irreversible. Such events include sport, entertainment, outreaches, and in-house events. There was a provincial football match that was organized in 2017.
So how were you able to discover the players, people that did the real thing?
So we had a football tournament which was anchored by the sport department, and we tried to get some players, of course, some guys from our church, and those guys did fantastically well. At the end of the day, we came out top. So
Of course, during the selection process, we had to ask them to come to training, and it was from the training we discovered, oh, this one can play and this one can start from the bench, and that is it. So that was how we discovered most of it.
One unforgettable program that was held was a state of emergency. It was a supernaturally divine service. The first time it was held, it was a teens church at August Street that was used, and the whole place was filled up. Few days later, people started sending in their testimonies of how God had speedily answered their prayers. Those who needed jobs suddenly got. The ones with health issues were miraculously healed, and many more. The following month, as a way of saying thank you, Lord, the worship service called An Evening with the King was birthed. One particular evening, during An Evening with the King worship service, an inspiration was God that the next state of emergency should be called Tongueify. It was a shock, as no one knew even the meaning of the word in English. But one thing was clear, what it meant, and it was loved, and thus they obeyed. That service was one of the most blessed evening service that has been heard thus far by Haji. The miracles were mind-blowing. Someone who could not bend her hand as a result of an accident she had 7 years before that time was made whole on the spot. A lady who had eye defect testified of the healing power of God, and many other testimonies. After that single physical program, there had been an online version of Tongueify, which was held in 2020 around April for a whole month. And as a continuation, the program is also being held in this month, April 2021.
To meet with you today. Father, I have come to meet with you today. I've not come to meet anybody.
Well, since then, Royal Generation has been a place for me where God had enabled me to showcase my thirst and hunger for God. We are many that join Royal Generations. Well, when I say many, many is relative anyway. But a few of us, let me use the word few, so a few of us who joined Royal Generation at that time, we came with our different weaknesses. But one thing we had in common was the hunger and thirst to know God.
Okay, let me go back to how I started attending this church. It was my cousin that introduced me to this church. Yeah, Glory Worship Center. And he said to me, come to this church, don't worry. He knows this is where prayers have been answered. Those words, he never leaves my head. Prayers have been answered. He was so sure of himself. He gave me examples of people in church that came to that when they started the church, attending the church, and where they are now.
Their life turned around.
It's though I just don't want to mention it because I've seen it for myself. Yeah. And I cannot say this is, I know what it was like when I started attending this church. And I know where I am now. It has been growth. Gets, and it was even bad to the extent that there was a time I moved. Okay, I used to live around here, so I moved to the island, and my wife was like, okay, when are we going to change and start attending church on the island? I'm like, I'm not living.
That this is the right place.
Do you understand me? Because I grew actually 2008 to 2021. It's been, God has been good.
We had a fellowship that was closely knit. You know, there was love shared at home and abroad. So we had people who would travel, and then we kept communication.
Togetherness.
So, yes, there was togetherness. And so that's why till date you would always find out that when people who were in that fellowship go abroad and they come back to the country, the first place they want to worship is GWC.
I've gained a lot as far as spiritual wise. It has helped me, it has groomed me to know much more about the Bible, and then of course how to relate that with my physical life and my practical living, daily living with people, and of course the activities that I involve myself in. So.
And what have you? I remember saying that no, I don't want to say I'm not the type that likes to write, and all of that. But well, it was cool. Yeah, it was. I had Dami, which was my assistant then, and she was really assistant. Yes, she was.
The kind of day you loved.
She was there. Yes, she was there.
We had a massive youth congregation. I remember the former church, when we called for people to wait, we probably filled the left side of the auditorium. And it was quite interesting, and there was a lot of togetherness. And of course, we were growing up together. And then eventually, we were all active. We could see a lot of active commitment by everyone trying to do what we were doing. And I think we impacted a lot of the youth on our streets, which is one of the ways a lot of the youth around this institution, the church there. I remember one program we had, we call it Open House. We just opened the church, we were games and everything, people just came from all over the place. It was very interesting. So, a lot of business development stuff and things like that. So it's quite interesting for me. It gave me a chance to learn. It also gave me a chance to understand, to look up to people, because as we were young, we were also looking at people who in the church were executive and we were wishing we could get to that level.
Also, the fellowship has been very instrumental in the church outreaches. The Makoko outreach is run mostly by the youth from the fellowship. The outreach grew from 1 to about 350 members within the first 2 years of establishing the outreach. They all became too small, and they had to start observing 2 services every Sunday. Similarly, God has used the fellowship as the backbone and the vessel to run the campus outreach at Abulioja. They had about 10 to 15 trained workers consisting members and non-members of the church. For the campus fellowship, God has been particularly and tremendously faithful.
Chains are broken, break out, Holy Spirit.
It was noticed that everyone who joined the workforce had a turnaround in their academics. God blessed all the fellowship workers academically. In fact, 3 of the workers were noted to have had first-class semester results, 2 of them topping their set. One was from the University of Lagos, whilst the other was from Yabate. One challenge we have had over time, however, is the ability to get all the youth in the church involved in our services. Though of a truth, we've had fewer hands who are committed at rendering services, yet God has wrought great works through these fewer hands. These fewer hands have acted dramas that were of excellent standard. These fewer hands have been a blessing to people in sick bed, taking the good news to them. and preaching on the street and market within the environment. These and many more have been the testimonies from the fellowship. You know, there is something about testimony. Testimonies are signs of reflections that make you to be full of gratitude. Testimony in itself is a weapon of victory. If you're a youth in this church, my question to you is, are you part of Royal Generation Testimonies? You need to join us today. God bless you.
God bless you. I hope to see you. Let's come together and make it worthwhile. We are the Royal Generation. Shalom.